I want to introduce my panelists here, let them introduce themselves. I'm going to pass the mic until we get these things working accordingly. Troy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Let's see if you can hear in the back. Are we good? Okay, great. So, Troy Bertram, reside in Austin, Texas, been with AWS for 4 years now. I lead our business development teams that consists of working with all of our partners, so our extended Amazon partner network, as well as our proposal, business development leads that are all focused on public sector. And as we define public sector, it's all educational institutions, so higher education, K-12, and the educational technology companies like the Blackboards of the world and the Ellucians that work on developing technology and have oftentimes for 25 plus years in delivering technology to our educators and to our educational institutions globally. We also cover all state and local government agencies as well as federal agencies. Included under our public sector umbrella is all nonprofits, so NGOs and NPOs worldwide. So it's working, the predominant amount of our business today has come out of the U.S. Government sector and our educational institutions, where we've really seen growth over the past 2 years has been globally. Seeing other governments working with, and Stanley up here in the front and I were just talking about the 5 Eyes. And those of you familiar with the intelligence communities, globally working together to solve international challenges and problems, especially as they emerge on the IT front, are the sort of customers that we've been working with for years. And right about that 10, 11 year mark, so Amazon is in its 11th year, Amazon Web Services, and we can talk about kind of the creation as we go over time, but I can attempt to field any questions today from any of the public sector and or take a stab at commercial sector questions that may exist for those of you that are representing what we define as commercial sector, for-profit companies.
Sure. So my name's Nathan McWhirter. I'm a solution architect manager here at AWS. I've been with AWS a little over 2 years. I've been working with the platform for about 6 years now. I actually came to AWS from a partner doing integration and consulting work out in the industry. If you're not familiar, what our solution architecture teams do is we kind of have multiple roles. Our external facing role is to help customers understand how to use AWS, how to use it effectively, how to use it according to best practice and cost efficiently. And we have an internal role as well. Some of that involves thought leadership, generating white papers, guidance, defining best practice for customers. But a lot of that is also AWS, much like all at Amazon, really focuses on something we call customer obsession. The idea that what the customer needs always comes first. So a huge amount of our roadmap, over 95% of our roadmap from AWS comes directly from customer requests. The SAs have a big job in gathering that data from customers as we're out there talking about best practice, out there helping people design architectures on our platform to gather those customer requirements and bring them back so that we can constantly be innovating the platform to meet new and emerging customer needs. And I left out one detail. So my team is specifically on public sector as well, and my team is specifically focused around working with our public sector partners and our partner ecosystem.
Hi, yeah, I'm Brent Brightwell. I'm with Double Horn. And Double Horn started about 12 years ago, not too far from here, downtown Austin, really focusing on VoIP and small business bundling, internet, phone, hardware, kind of back before we all got it in our households, right? And our founders were doing that with small businesses. Started coming across more agencies who kind of act like small businesses in a lot of ways. And while we were in there, they would look at us and say, hey, do you know anything about email? Sure, small business, we'll take that on. But the servers back here, we don't know what they do, can you take that on? So we got really good and resourceful, but what we started learning very quickly is we needed strong partners to work with, so we started building out a catalog of partners. About 5 or 6 years ago, we started getting heavy in use cases around storage, and standing up storage and alternative storage, and that's where our friends at AWS really came in and started working with us. By that time, we started spending a lot of time with state agencies, everything from public hospitals to schools to police departments and so on. And when it came to the storage aspect, because they weren't doing a lot of app migration and dev tests at the time, but they were looking for storage, they were looking for failover, and Amazon was a strong partner for us as well. Over the last 5 years, we've gotten really good at what we call cloud service brokerage, to the point where we ended up winning the DIR contract for cloud service brokerage, cloud consulting and assessment, and also most recently the SaaS contract. And we've got to do a lot of interesting deals together and help a lot of great customers out there. One recently, I can't name the customer, but it's a large county that you may or may not be sitting in right now. They were getting on average about 500 visits to their website. With the election and leading up to the election, that started going up to about 500,000. So we helped make sure that they could scale, and AWS was able to support them across their main applications. And we were able to pull in and make sure that people in the county could get to what they needed to get the information they depended upon. So as a cloud service broker, we've gotten really good at that consolidated bill right in front of the bundle. The first line of support, have someone to call at all times. And we've even started building some great management tools as well. So, and we're demoing those a lot here and talking about it. That's the Better Clouds solution. So what I thought we would do now is we can take questions from the audience. Okay, so you can take the mic. Stand up, tell us your name, tell us your company or who you're with. And Arish will come over there to you. I'll get kicked off with a couple of questions now. But I'd really like to kind of let Troy tell us a little bit about first about what are you doing in the cloud, what you're thinking about, where things are going, why cloud, and all those great things.
One, thank you, Brent, for the opportunity. What are we thinking about and what are we doing in the cloud? Nathan had commented that 95% of our innovation comes from partners and from customers. So what do we see really changing? And in one simple sentence, I think of it as delivering more mission for the dollars. Whether you're in commercial sector and you're trying to deliver a return on investment and innovate and rapidly change in a global economy, or whether you're in the public sector and you're an educator, or you're a criminal investigator, or you're a police officer, you're looking at how do you deliver more mission for those dollars. And we're all taxpayers. So from a public sector perspective, if we look at why cloud, cost is normally one of the first reasons that customers are looking at moving to the cloud. After that, quite honestly, it's an improvement in the security posture, right? It's the fact that at scale, we can both have a shared security model responsibility where we protect the in the cloud, and we work with you to protect of the cloud and your data security. It's the pace of innovation and the fact that how data is being used, and those decisions are really now informing decisions. If we look at how data is evolving, whether it's big data analytics or IoT sensors that exist now in every one of our homes and in our workplace that are informing decisions, and we can, if you're John Deere and you're looking at how to improve agricultural practices, how can we use sensors and data, or if you're managing fleets of vehicles, your Tata Motors or your Philips lighting, how can you have smart lighting in large buildings like this that turn on and off and save electricity, and tell you when there's going to be a problem. If you're Tata Motors, when are you going to have a problem with one of your vehicles, so it's not down and it's not you're not losing profitability. All of those are different use case scenarios that we see that are rapidly changing by the volume of data that exists. Before, Mr. Stanley up here and I were talking before the session around one of our customers. It's a public use reference, and it's FINRA, financial regulatory agencies. The ability to take 75 million snapshots of transactions on Wall Street every single day and look for anomalies and replay those and look for, are there either proactive measures that should be taken, are there anomalies in the trading systems? Those are implementations that the cloud has enabled and really helped us evolve. How we go to market is through our partners. So we've got tens of thousands of partners within our Amazon Partner Network. It's grown over 50% this past year. And those partners are divided between technology and consulting partners. The consulting partners that are advising, as Brent and Doublehorn, are customers in how to look at assessing applications or how to migrate and move. On the government side of the business, they're the prime contract holders often that are working with local, regional, or federal government agencies. And then on the other side of the business, it's the technology companies. It's those that are building brand new models or evolving their business models built on top of the cloud. Many of the companies that we're working with today didn't exist 5 years ago. Their business model has now been built on top of the cloud, and it's because of those cost savings of not investing in expensive data centers and infrastructure, but really focusing their engineering resources, if they're an evolving company, on the innovation and really focusing on releasing products quickly to market and being able to go global in those markets.
Are you seeing some key barriers, or are those barriers still there? Are they dissipating? What are you seeing out there holding people back from going to the cloud?
It's a great question. One of our intelligence agency customers probably summed it up best over dinner recently, and he said that it's a three-legged stool, and I think it applies to for-profit or non-profit or government agencies. And that three-legged stool is security and compliance. It's having a key business owner that has the vision and can rally the internal forces to overcome just general adoption of any program, right? We've lived it in our organizations for years. And the third is procurement. So if you can have a balanced three-legged stool that thinks about how will you buy and how will you evolve the way you bought IT resources in the past, how will you balance your security and compliance needs while at the same time serving up data or your products to your constituencies or your customers with having a key stakeholder internally. If one of those legs of your stool is off, it slows down your adoption.
Makes perfect sense. Nathan, have you seen some of those barriers as well?
I have, and I'm going to actually talk about it probably a little bit more from a technical, tactical perspective, kind of where we fit into the picture a lot of times. Something I see out there after people kind of get through those challenges, or sometimes during working through those challenges, is also what I like to call analysis paralysis, right? A lot of organizations that we talk to get sort of trapped in this loop that they're like, all right, cloud, we're going to work on the security problems, we're going to work on the procurement problems, and try to solve all of them at once for all of their IT needs, and get to a point where they can't ever really move forward because they can't figure out really, in essence, the problem becomes, how do I get started? And what we usually advise, and what's successful for a lot of the customers we work through, is find somewhere to get started, usually a proof of concept. It's hard to plan a migration to as large and deep of a platform as what we offer without getting your hands dirty a little bit first, without getting into it. Start with a proof of concept, build something small, test it out, get a feel for the platform and what it can do, and then start with smaller workloads when it becomes time to start moving things. For a lot of customers, that's test dev workloads. For some customers, that's DR, if they happen to have DR sites that need to be revamped, or maybe a lot of customers I talk to don't have DR sites and really need them. So I think that's one of the blockers I see most frequently, is just figuring out how to get started and figuring out how to create a plan. Get started with those proof of concepts, get started with those smaller systems. Look at tools like partners that can help you decide, help you plan a migration. Look at tools like our cloud adoption framework to help you plan out how you're going to make those moves as you're working through some of those early problems like procurement, security, and the higher level business problems of getting everything organized.
Yeah, we have a joint customer, a large water distribution and management company I can't name yet as a reference, but this agency needed to do print services. And they were using, I think when they came to us originally, they were using a different provider, weren't they? And after we did our analysis, it was clear that what they needed was the AWS offering. If I remember correctly, it was the head of the VP of IT was very much, director of IT was very much a visionary, cloud evangelist visionary. But the rest of the team wasn't on, his boss wasn't on, and other people. And that's what he did. He set up a pilot and ran it for 3 months with us in AWS. He didn't tell anybody he was doing this. And then one day announced that, yeah, we've been running all of our print servers on AWS the last 3 months. Have you noticed how great things have been? And they're like, holy cow. And that really flipped the switch for them. They've been expanding their cloud usage and footprint across other areas. We experienced those hiccups and delays, and nobody was complaining about printing again. They never stopped looking back again. They've been doing great. So you mentioned partners, Troy. Why do you think that folks should go to AWS partner? I mean, the reason why you guys are partners is y'all are so easy to work with. Your business is growing. You do a great job at it. But why should someone come to a partner versus coming to you directly?
We know what we're really good at, and that's infrastructure. We want to manage the infrastructure. We don't and are not a systems integrator, a consulting partner. We know that over the last 25 years, a lot of governments have outsourced their IT, or in commercial entities have a very robust internal IT development team, but they're looking at somebody to come in and assess how do they move, how do they help them solve business problems, and our partners do that. Our partner ecosystem is set up to work jointly with us to solve those customer problems. So working at a local level, or if you need a technology partner or a double horn that has a contract vehicle, right? In many cases, and of course I'm a public sector person through and through, we work through contract vehicles. And it's working with, whether it's social economic set aside, small businesses, or subject matter experts in a regional area that have been operating in, say, Austin for 12 plus years, or any place else in the globe, of bringing those partners together. And oftentimes what we see in our solutions is it may take an abundance of partners to help solve a problem. There may be technology partners that have a very specific application, or they're developing something on top of our platform, that connecting partner to partner is why we have such a large ecosystem. That when we're out talking with customers and we identify what the problem is, bringing that back into our partner ecosystem to look at who has a database expertise, or who's working at virtualization. We announced a partnership publicly the last couple months now with VMware, and we'll be launching a product in our early next year, where we will be mutually working with one of the large software providers in VMware that has an equally large partner distribution network. Our way to help customers move from an on-prem or a hybrid environment to a cloud environment is through the partner ecosystem.
Yeah, it's certainly been one of your core tenets. What you deliver, scalability, scale with us. That's where we kind of started. Be agile and scale with us. We have excess. Use what we have, and why are you paying so much? It's been a core technology tenet, but it's become a business tenet by the way you scale with your partners. And help us build out these better clouds and bring folks online. So Nathan, you mentioned DR, you mentioned some other use cases like migration or dev test. What are some of the technical aspects, innovations that you're seeing around those migrations, for example, some of those use cases?
So, I'll take a step back and say that at this point, there's almost no workload that we're not seeing moving or getting ready to move when we look at the big picture. But a lot of the reasons, like I'll give you an example of, one of the big reasons I see a lot of customers moving, aside from cost, and you asked about technical aspects, is the features and rate of development of our platform and the capabilities that enables. So I worked with a customer, I'm still working with a customer, that they do real estate assessments, real estate valuation assessments. The way they were doing that before is they have a lot of statisticians they employ that do the statistical analysis that they use to run these calculations. The way they were doing that was with a really big Oracle database and a lot of stored procedures. So for those that aren't familiar with that, basically what they were doing was the statisticians would come up with a mathematical model for how they want to try to come up with the value of this property. Then a programmer would attempt to take the output from the statistician and turn it into a set of code that they could run in a database against a large set of values and generate an output. And that worked for them for many years, but the problem they were running into is the number of properties was growing, the number of individual statistical analyses they had to run was getting larger, and they could only run one at a time, and they had a very tight SLA for delivering the results of these analyses. So what they ended up doing, and the problem was they slowly got to the point where they had like a 24-hour SLA to deliver the output of this. It was getting to the point where it was taking 20 hours for them to run this on the equipment that they had there. So if anything went wrong with that calculation, if the numbers were no good because the translation from statistical model to code didn't work on the first try, and these are unique every time, they were already out of their SLA. If it didn't work on the first try, they were already hosed. So what they ended up doing was they moved the entire system to AWS and moved to a model where they were able to, using Elastic MapReduce, to do a lot of kind of big data tools there. They moved away from that kind of stored procedure database model and used more distributed databases, and they used a model where the statisticians actually owned the calculation all the way through, so they quit doing the translation. So the statisticians who actually are building the mathematical models were empowered to effectively request a computing cluster on demand, enter their statistical model, it would run, and they'd get their output significantly faster in minutes or hours. And because of the elastic nature of AWS and the services they were using, they were able to run these jobs in parallel instead of stacking one up and having to wait for it to complete. Everybody else is queuing in line behind that, right? Because of those constraints around the single piece of hardware, the single set of resources. So as a use case and example, I think that it's pretty powerful. Getting out of that kind of traditional piece of hardware that was causing them a lot of pain and suffering, and being able to move to a new parallel model was a big success for them.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. You know, we kind of alluded to some of the concerns. Tell us about what you're seeing around security with ransomware, DDoS attacks. What are some of the security things that may be holding people back?
So I don't think for most of the customers we're talking to, ransomware is a concern, but it's not really a concern with the systems we're talking about very much, because that ends up affecting desktops much more. Hopefully it's not affecting your servers. If it is, you may have some work to do. But speaking from our perspective, security's job one. It always has been for us, and we have a long list of third-party security attestations, things like SOC, ISO 27001, FedRAMP, PCI, HIPAA, ITAR, long lists that speak to that. And depending on whether you're commercial, public sector, whether you're state, local, federal, some of those may apply to you, some of them may not. But everybody gets the benefit of those because the platform's built to meet all of those requirements. So even if you don't require FedRAMP, you're still using services that have been vetted through FedRAMP, and you still get those benefits. So I think that what we hear from a lot of our customers is they feel more secure in the cloud environment than they do in their own data centers at this point. And I'll back that up with a couple of reasons. One is that the way that we do security has changed a lot. It is much more now, as software kind of eats the world, it is much more now about the velocity at which you can respond to threats and vulnerabilities, and using flexible infrastructure and development practices and operations practices that can move more quickly and respond to threats more quickly is a big part of improving that security. Another example I'll give is that there are things that we can do at our scale that aren't feasible in a small data center. For example, we enforce really strict separation of concerns between physical and logical access. If you have physical access to a facility to be able to change hardware, replace things that have failed, you don't have logical access to any of those systems. There's not a lot of customers I talk to that run their own data centers that can stomach the idea of the systems administrators aren't ever allowed in the data center, or if they are, they have their access suspended and they're not allowed to log into anything while they're there. But that's something that we can do at our scale. All administration is done remotely, right? Separating those things, because it helps provide a higher level of security assurance. That's something that we can do that because of our scale and how we operate things. I'll take a break there and hand you your question back. I feel like I've been talking for a while.
No, you're doing great. I thought security would be a hot topic for folks in the room, but there's only a few of you said you were in the cloud. I didn't ask you what's holding you back. All right, is security holding you back? And if so, do you have any questions or concerns you'd like to bring up? Things your peers have said? Hey, Bruce, you wouldn't mind just standing up and just quickly saying your name and what organization you're with and asking your question?
Hi, my name is Lisa Wei. I work for a government agency. So my question is, you mentioned the security. I'm a security analyst. So we are a AWS customer. So if the system will get compromised or breached, what should we do different with the AWS system or an in-house system? So what kind of service you can provide to help us to investigate a breach or
of the cloud? The customer is still responsible for the security in the cloud. We can't do all of it, right? So the level is different between the different services of where our responsibility stops and yours starts. Usually when we have this conversation, especially early on, we're talking about EC2, lower level building block services. And customers are concerned with, if my instances become compromised, how do I deal with that? The answer is a lot of the same techniques. There's some techniques that are cloud specific that you can take advantage of. A lot of the same techniques you use today for like your forensic analysis are still just as applicable on these virtual machines as they are anywhere else. Techniques that you can be using in the cloud environment to monitor and respond to those things are things like our CloudTrail service. CloudTrail is a service that records all of the API actions made in your environment. So if people are making changes, if people are modifying firewall rules, as an example, you have an audit log of everything that's changed. That is similar to what you do normally, like you're going to go review audit logs and see what happened when, what was taken, what occurred in this incident. But in the cloud environment, it's a little different because you can centralize all that. All of your configuration changes for the infrastructure are all in one place. Taking advantages of things like Cloudflow logs to capture flow logs of all of your network and traffic. I'm assuming in this case, maybe this was a network compromise that you're trying to track down. So the ability to then correlate those two things and say, all right, what network flows did we have, did we record that may or may not be related to this incident, et cetera. And another is the ability to take automated action on things like that. So you can take things like those output logs from VPC flow logs, and you can use them to do automated actions like, say, if I have a certain amount of blocked traffic from a machine, I want to automatically remove it from the network. Don't wait for a human to take action, just do it. Cut it off, shut it down, and we're going to come back and do forensic analysis on that machine later to see what happened. Inside the instances, a lot of the same things apply. Agent-based memory dumps, absolutely you can do that, and you can run those forensic analyses of your machines. Logging is a huge, huge deal. We first recommend best practice. Log your applications, instrument your applications, do your own log management, or take advantage of some of our managed services for that log management. So I'd say on that side, a lot of the same principles and best practices apply.
Hi. My question is, in the public sector, how much adoption are you seeing for services that are higher up the stack, like the Beanstalk and container service, as against the VMs?
Yeah, so Anecdotally, because I don't have any large numbers I can share on it across the whole organization. Anecdotally, a fair amount. We see early on, a lot of customers get started with those building block services down below, EC2 instances, S3 storage, EBS storage, and they build applications out of kind of familiar components. The networking is different. It's got some features that are new and different than what they're used to on premise, but they kind of start with those familiar chunks and build up. But a lot of organizations, as they grow, or new organizations coming in, as public sector across the board is matured, are going after those higher level services. They're starting with things like Elastic Beanstalk, talking about kind of new, more cutting edge things like kind of this new idea of serverless computing, using managed services that completely avoid having any virtual machines to maintain and just using higher level services to run code and for storage and things like that.
And I will add, I think what we see, especially in the public sector, is kind of 4 tranches of customers that start, right? They start with that development and test, right? DRQ, and as they get comfortable, then they move to digital assets or websites, analytics, mobile, right? Becomes one of those kind of next kind of level 2 tranche. Tranche 3 is really where they get to mission critical applications, and this is really especially where partners come into the equation. That takes planning. That's a 12, 18-month migration, assessing what do you have, assessing, you're planning for, I've got a data center that's coming up at the end of its lease, I'm trying to consolidate, I've gone through a merger, an acquisition, or a divestiture. All of those kind of mission-driven requirements that one can plan for, but they're time-bound. We see that as kind of that 3rd tranche before someone goes all in. And then when we get to an all-in environment, right, that's the Netflix, the Intuits, the FINRAs, Notre Dame is one of the educational institutions that said, hey, I'm not going to be in the data center business anymore. I don't need one. I shouldn't have one. I'm all in, working through my partner ecosystem. Federal Home Loan Bank, we could go on with public references that have kind of gone through that journey of, they start with that first application and that first move through mobile towards a mission critical application, and then ultimately look to get out of the data center business.
So Troy, you mentioned earlier about the VMware relationship. I mean, what a great win for customers in the market. Right? Most people see their vCenter as their private cloud, right? And being able to work with Amazon now gives all those customers the opportunity to bring out a hybrid cloud environment. Do you think it's going to work that way? You think it's all or nothing, or hybrid is going to be the way forward? How are you seeing that shape up?
Well, and I really think, Brent, just as an extension of my previous answer, it's a journey for all of our customers, and it's over time, right? There will be some agencies and entities, especially where you're global, going with some applications that you want to get close to your customer base or your constituents in a global environment. You may move really close from a cloud-based environment to where the customer is. And there may be other applications that are homegrown, that need to be rebuilt, re-architected, that will certainly be in a hybrid environment, and we expect that to occur for many of our customers over a time period. But I think it's an evolution of kind of moving through that journey to the cloud, and it sounded like many of the audience are kind of somewhere on that journey, right? You've either been 9 years, or your agency hasn't, or your business hasn't moved yet.
All right, we've just got a couple of minutes left. I want to ask you to look into your crystal ball, read the tea leaves. We kind of see where we were 5 years ago, where you guys were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and where we're at today. Tell us what the future looks. What are we going to be talking about in 5 years around cloud?
So I'll jump in on that one. If I had to look into my crystal ball, I think that what we're going to see is customers continuing to move further up the stack, back to the gentleman's question here. And that's what we've already been seeing, right? So the amount of services that we release, the amount of things we're adding to the platform is constantly accelerating. We hit over 700 new services and features last year. We've already beat the number from last year this year. I think in October it was, we crossed that line. So, and a lot of those services are higher level, more managed services. Customers are, as they grow and they become comfortable and more mature on cloud, they're moving away from things that they maintain themselves and moving to the services that are maintained on their behalf, so they can kind of get rid of the undifferentiated heavy lifting down at the bottom and focus more on their mission and their goals and their core competencies and building their applications and running them. So I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot more of that, people moving up higher and higher, the services moving higher, taking advantage of those.
And I would add freedom from databases, right, where customers feel very locked in today. Having analytics, right, just big data analytics has been a buzzword, as is IoT for the past few years, but really being able, what can we do with it now? How do we harness the power and the compute power, and really pushing technology? In the past, what we saw was innovation to adoption was a lot longer period than it is now. And what we're seeing is large organizations, governments, adopting technology much quicker and much faster through training. We trained hundreds of thousands and actually give certifications on AWS platform. I think as our IT world, and even through our education, right, a lot of our new IT professionals are graduating college now, right? They're entering the workforce. They're going to be building the next applications, the next business models solely built on top of cloud. They're not constrained by the current environments that we see. So I think some of that, crystal ball, we don't know what that looks like yet.
The certifications are great. The training you'll have online, but also AWS reInvent's a good opportunity for people to come and get training and certification. That's coming up in 2 weeks.
Week after the holidays. So if those that may not be in Vegas, that is, we do not hold a sales and marketing conference. We hold a technology conference. It is in Las Vegas because of the size. It's the week after Thanksgiving. It's been sold out for 3 months, so there are no tickets. So this is not a pitch to come attend if you don't have a ticket. But what we do is we stream online. And those technology sessions, 65% of them are delivered by customers and partners. It is not, again, a sales and marketing event for us. It's a technology conference. And having partners talk about banana peels they stepped on, right? Customers walking through their journey to the cloud and saying, I did this, I tried this. Because really what we see from an innovation standpoint is how fast we can now try an experiment. What used to be 10 to 12 weeks to get a server to run something, now you can spin up that instance, spend tens, maybe $100, run an experiment, close it down. The speed at which we can fail, and if we're really stretching the bounds and thinking about new products, new services, new offerings across a large ecosystem, is those experiments should fail more often than they're successful. But the speed at which, and at the very low cost, that you can have anybody across your employee base go test something is great. And I think that's one of the evolutions that we're seeing that training and certification really helps with.
Yeah, the event will be streaming. You can register. I got my email to stream it for those that aren't attending. We actually you work so closely with your partners, and we're a cloud service broker. We work with all the providers. We just have a high preference for those who do it really well and make it easy to integrate with, work at the API level. When Amazon saw our Better Cloud solution, one of the key things they asked us to do was build out a product for AWS, specialize in AWS, help enhance our reporting, allow more control of the services. So we'll be announcing and launching at AWS our Better Clouds for AWS. You can see that demonstrated in some parts down at the booth 302. You getting that right? And we will, can't wait to show you Better Clouds for AWS and how great that experience can be working together. We thank you guys for your time today. We hope you have a wonderful, wonderful event, and we'll see you next year.